Mama's.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Pardi, co-founder of MBA and Beyond, and tonight we have amazing lineup of guests or speakers, so to say, with us. I know that all of you are targeting M7 and you want to really understand the secret sauce behind it, and I think we are going to have a very, very valuable session with you there. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. Otherwise, towards the end, we are going to do a live Q&A so we can all unmute ourselves and ask as many questions as you would like. But throughout the session, please, we request you to be on mute and drop your questions in the comment section. All right, so let's get started. We still see a couple of people are going to join, but anyways, this is a recorded session. We're going to share the recording with you also later. But getting started for now. The agenda for today is going to be how to tackle M7 essay questions. And we are going to be talking about what are the nitty-gritties and specifics of how should you be and what you should be really looking at tackling these questions. This question we get asked a lot, the second point in the agenda, will a low GMAT or GPA, GMAT and GPA ruin my M7 dream admit? We also get asked, how should we select the best fit schools for profile like mine based on my goals, my GMAT, etc. So we're going to be addressing that. What should you do now to show you are the best fit, or let's say the best prepared for a top M7 school that you're targeting? When should you start really working on your applications for upcoming intake? Should you work with a consultant? If yes, what you should really look for in a consultant? How should you choose your consultant? How do you figure out your best fit? Now, let me introduce our speakers tonight. We have Miguel Carvalho. Miguel is a graduate from Colombia Business School. Before his MBA, Miguel worked for a top strategic consulting firm, and I'm sure you all can guess which one that is. Of course, one of the top in Portugal and Angola, and he is now moving to the New York office post-MBA. During his experience in consultant, Miguel has worked with international teams in different industries, including banking, public sector, and energy. Throughout his consulting tenure and during the MBA, Miguel has been a reference point in coaching new candidates and helping colleagues and friends approaching application processes. He's actually helped a lot of candidates make it to some of the top M7 schools, where it was one of the dream schools of most of the candidates, including Colombia. Then the second speaker we have here, and this is the second time speaker we have, Pratibha Srivastava. Pratibha is an IIT that graduate with 4 years of experience in oil and gas industry. During her application process, Pratibha received multiple admits from top schools such as Duke Fuqua, Yale SOM, and Columbia Business School. She finally decided to make up her decision to join Columbia, and she's an incoming full-time candidate to Columbia Business School with $45K US scholarship. Can I kindly request Pratibha and Miguel to come on board, and the stage is all yours, guys. Over to you.
Yeah. Hey guys, hi, Pratibha here. Thanks, Paridhi, for the lovely introduction. Miguel, if you're there, you can just, probably take up this slide, the first one, and then I can follow along.
Yeah. So, good morning and or good evening, everyone, depending where you're from. I'm speaking to you here from New York. As was said in the introduction, I just graduated last week from Columbia Business School. And so when asked this question of what should an M7 profile look like, I thought about these 4 elements that I wanted to share with you. So the first one is about uniqueness. And here, because so these schools have a wide variety of profiles and applications. And when you think about your application, you need to think about what really sets you apart from your peers, and what are the unique experiences that you have that are going to make your application stand out of the page. And here, in my case, for example, so at the time I was working in consulting in Portugal, and the pool of European consultants that are applying to M7 schools it's very large. And so to differentiate myself, I thought I want my application to look different. I want to be unique. And so I completely changed my career and decided to move from Lisbon to Angola to have an experience in Africa that I was sure was going to change myself a lot, both on a professional and on a personal level, and allow me to write all of my essays and to define all of my application process around this uniqueness point about myself. One more. Exactly. So I think that you really need to try to find this. What's your uniqueness factor? What can you still do before your application process to still differentiate yourself and guarantee that you're really going to jump out of the page? Then the second point is on growth. And one of the elements that admin's offices and everyone will be looking for when looking at your applications is, so this person has a 3 to 4 or 5 year career pre-MBA. How have they developed throughout these 3-4 years? Are they ambitious people that have systematically gained more and more relevant roles in the organization, even maybe change organizations for a better position? So it needs to come through that you have really grown in your career pre-MBA, and then jumping to aspiration, that you're really going to leverage your MBA to pursue this growth post your MBA career, and it needs to really be clear what you want to do after your MBA, how you're going to leverage your MBA to do it. And I think that something that people often make a mistake here, especially when applying to M7 schools. Your aspirations need to be big, because if you're thinking about Columbia Business School or Stanford or HBS or any of the other M7, what they're looking for is for the leaders of tomorrow. And so if your aspiration is I want to be an N-2 at Google or at Meta or whatever, it's just not good enough, because what Columbia Business School and all these other schools are looking for is for the next CEO, the next C-suite. So whenever you position these long-term aspirations, make sure that you're aiming high, because these schools are looking for people that are aiming very high. And the final point that I'd like to highlight, and I think it's something that we'll cover across many of the questions, is the fit for the school. So when you're doing these applications, you really need to show that you've done your homework, you know what the school culture is like, you know that your profile is a good fit, you speak with alumni, you know what are the courses, what are the professors, what are the clubs. It really needs to come through the application that you know the school, you know what you're going to do in the school, and you know what's your contribution going to be to the school. And this requires some research, requires speaking with alumni. But I think that these are the 4 very important points that need to come in your application. And just to recap, you need to show that you're unique. You need to show that you've growth in your pre-MBA career, that you have big aspirations, and that you're a very good fit for the school.
Great, thanks. Pratibha, do you want to add something there?
I think Miguel has covered it beautifully. So every point that is highlighted in here and what Miguel talked about, I agree with it 100%, because I've been through the same process, and all of these factors came in my application as well. And I truly swear by what Miguel has just said. So we can move on to the next topic. Yeah. So this is a very burning question. Will a low GMAT and or GPA will ruin your M7 dream admit? So let me start by saying that there is no straight or one-word answer for this. The answer that I would like to give is not necessarily. It wouldn't necessarily ruin your dream admit, because when you look at the broader picture, when you go through the entire application cycle, you would understand that there are a lot of things other than what the test scores are. So schools or adcoms, they do not only look for a score and not judge you by it. Rather, there are a lot of your personality traits that come out in your entire application that are being judged. So I would really suggest that if you have given it your best shot, so GPA is something that you cannot go back and change, right? That is a matter of past, and GMAT is something that you are working for now. And if you feel that you have given your best shot, this is the best that you could have done, and that score, let's say, is not it's not above the average score of those M7 dream schools, then let's now sit and analyze what we can do to compensate that factor. So to compensate that, there are a lot of things that you can do. First is you can highlight the amazing qualities that you have gained throughout your work experience. So the amazing things that you have done in your professional life that has made you a person who is really fit into that M7 school. You can highlight that. Or something that you have done apart from the professional work experience, because professional work experience is also something which is very common to everyone, and people have achieved a lot of things. So if you are someone who really thinks about society, who really likes to give back to the society, and if you have done some stellar work in there, make sure to highlight that. Make sure to highlight that with your essays, and whenever you get a chance to interact with the adcom during your interview or something. So if you do that, if you showcase your personality beyond those test scores, I don't think that your dream would be ruined, so to say. And I personally believe that you'll be given a chance at least to showcase yourself in your interview, and then the floor is all yours. You can showcase the best elements of your profile. You can showcase that you are a much bigger personality beyond the test scores, and then your dream admit will be yours. Miguel, anything that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, so I think that you covered it beautifully, but something that I'd like to add is I do 100% agree that a low GMAT or GPA doesn't ruin your M7 dream, but something that you also should be aware of is a high GMAT or GPA is also not gonna guarantee your dream, your M7 dream, because as Pratibha was describing, like these admin offices are not necessarily looking for the next geniuses and whoever is able to ace a test. What they're really looking for is how can we put together the best possible class so that everyone is really going to learn from each other. And I have a good example for you. I have a very good friend of mine, extremely smart, that used to work with me, and he did his GMAT. He got like 760 or something crazy like this. And he thought, with 760, I should be able to get in any school that I want. And so he applied to Colombia and other M7 schools, thinking that with his GMAT, he will be accepted everywhere. And the fact is that he didn't dedicate enough time to his essay. I told him multiple times, your essay is not good enough. And he ended up being rejected first round in every school just because a 760 is not good enough. What these schools are looking for is who are you? What's your profile? Sure, they're going to look at your GMAT, they're going to look at your GPA, but at the end of the day is how do you write about yourself? How do other people write about yourself? What's your story? And how are you going to contribute to our classroom? So sure, dedicate yourself and try to get a good GMAT, but more than that, think about what can you bring to the school and how are you going to frame your persona to the school, because that's the most important part.
All right, thank you there. Guys, so we're doing this on Zoom, and I guess when you join us, it just unmutes itself automatically. I kindly request all of you to mute yourselves. It becomes tricky to hear. But yeah, thanks Miguel and Pratibha for very insightful ideas on how should people approach with low GMAT and GPA. And we actually did a session just I think 2 weeks back, for specifically for GMAT and how should you approach your application. It's still up on YouTube. How should you approach your application if you haven't taken your GMAT yet? And I would re-emphasize on the fact that GMAT, this 3-digit score, or GRE, this 3-digit score does not define you. You are way more than that. Something that Miguel had, that's what schools want to know. And that's how we see low GMAT scorers converting top schools all the time. So you have to think about your own story, your journey, and make sure that you're putting it out in the best words possible. So what Miguel said, they really want to see dreamers, achievers, and you need to prove yourself a global business leader post MBA. That's how you need to position yourself. Thank you both of you for that. Moving on to the next topic.
The next topic is how to select the best fit business schools for your profile. And so here, we decided to highlight mainly 3 points, and it's all about how do you get access to information, how do you use that information, how do you filter it, and how do you match with your profile. And so part of the process of choosing the business school to apply to, the biggest point I would say is speak with alumni. Try to see within your network if you know people that have attended those schools. If you don't have those people on your network, reach out on LinkedIn, just send messages. I cannot tell you how many 1 or 2 minute calls I've done with people that just wanted to speak about Colombia and just to try to understand the culture of the school. And most of these people are very welcoming. So just shoot some random messages, and I'm sure that someone will dedicate you 1, 2, or 5 minutes. But really speak with people that have attended or are attending the school to understand if it matches your profile well or not. Then more from an application standpoint, the most critical part is employment data. So you should be very aware when you're applying to a school, what is the pool that they recruit from? So what's their recruiting pool and what's their placement pool? Because ideally, if you are in consulting or finance or tech, you should be looking at a school that highly targets those industries from a recruitment standpoint. And then if you're looking to pivot to anything else, you should look for schools that are strong in that area. So clear example, but if you want to go to tech, then you should look more carefully at the West Coast schools like Stanford, for example. If you want to do finance, you should be looking at Wharton. And these are things that are very easy to understand, but it's part of your homework. You need to know what's the culture of each school, and you need to know what's the employment data, so that when you write your essay to that school, you know you're really fitting to the type of student they're looking for. And then the third one, that is, and here I have a painful personal story to tell, but when you're in the recruitment process, attend all events that you can. Attend all online events. There are a ton of webinars. If you can even try to go in person, but at least try to attend the online events. And I'll tell you one story where these went wrong for me. So I was doing my HBS application, and like my essay at the time was quite good, so I was selected for the interview process, and I had a lot of work to do at the time, so I was not attending any of these online events. And what ended up happening is I was not really aware of the process and how it works. So I flew to Boston for my interview, and when I got there, the first question was, so which class did you attend in the mornings? My interview was at 2 p.m. and everyone that was getting interviewed at 2 p.m. chose a class to attend from 9 to 12 so that you could speak about it in your interview. And this is something that everyone knew because they attended all of these online events, where they mentioned, if you have an interview in the afternoon, make sure you attend the class in the morning. I did not attend this event, and I don't know if there would have been the difference between getting accepted or not, but it's something that stuck with me. It's so easy to attend these events, and if you're really committed, you should make the time and you should make the effort. I did not, and I think that probably I was not accepted there because of it. At the end of the day, still came to Colombia, extremely happy about it, but it's something that I always mention to people starting their application processes: don't overlook these online events or in-person events. I don't know if you want to add anything, Pratibha.
Yeah, I think the last point, I totally agree with it. And I don't have a personal anecdote towards it, but I know a friend who was applying to a certain school, and he somehow attended a big conference that the school was hosting. And a few weeks down the line, he had the interview, and his interviewer ended up being the person who was one of the organizing members of that conference. So they had a very personal and a very common topic to talk about, and it ended up being a very beautiful interview at the end, and he got selected into that school as well. So you never know how it is going to affect you and on what scale. So wonderfully captured, Miguel, and I totally agree with the 3 points that you told.
Beautiful, both of you. Thanks for those inputs. And guys, please go ahead, sign up for all these events. You don't want to miss out on them if you are especially applying for early action rounds, because you are going to get 100% interview invite, considering Colombia, Darden, Fuqua, Tuck, and Emory Gazeta. These are some of the schools which are offering early action rounds. So if you are going for 100% interview, might as well just do as many events as possible before that, along with the application preparation. You might just bump into somebody you've already spoken to, like Pratibha mentioned, and that could really change the whole game. So make sure that we are all attending these sessions. All right, moving on to the next topic.
Right. So it's a big question. What should you do now to show that you are A, the best fit, B, well prepared, and C, highly motivated candidate for an M7? And these 3 things are perfectly curated for this question, because these are the 3 things which I think matter the most to the M7B schools. So in addition to showing your best personality, showing yourself to be the best fit for that school is really important. So how your values and how your stories make you the person who resonates with the values of the school is something that I valued a lot. And this was one of the most golden advices that I got in my application cycle. So show yourself to be a person, or rather first believe that you are the person who resonates with the kind of values. Then move on to being.
Pratibha, let me ask. I am not sure who's not on mute. Can we mute ourselves? Is it Jaylene? I'm just trying to. Okay, it's Saptoshi. I've just muted you. Guys, please let's mute ourselves and we'll unmute ourselves as we come closer towards the end. Sorry, Pratibha, back to you.
No problem. Yeah, thanks guys for coordinating. So yeah, as I was saying, so first, like you ensure that you are the best fit candidate for the school that you are targeting. So as Miguel was earlier highlighting, the kind of industry that you want to work with, the kind of industry that you see yourself working in after your MBA, there are schools that specialize in that. So find those schools and work your profile accordingly, showcase your profile accordingly in the business school application, so that they can see that you are exactly the person that they are looking for. You are the best fit candidate. Second thing, be well prepared. And there are a lot of elements to this being well prepared. In addition to polishing your best life stories, you should also bring out the skills that make you the best fit candidate, or that show that you are well prepared. So take your time, speak to people, speak to as many people as you can, gather those stories and understand what the school is looking for, so that you are well prepared to answer any questions that come in your interview. Or just highlight those skills, highlight those important attributes in your essays. The third thing is highly motivated candidates for M7. This is very important. So the schools really want to know how sincere you are, how motivated you are, and how much how committed you are to that school. So the early action rounds that Paridhi was talking about, they are generally a mean to assess how committed you are to the school. So in order to showcase that you are a highly motivated candidate for M7 or any B school that you are targeting for that matter, show your presence, and show your presence sincerely. If you are attending the events, do not attend them just for the sake of them. Just attend it to really gather that knowledge, to interact, to sort of build your network as much as you can, without being too obvious, and without and how do I say this, please, I have seen in the events that the schools organize, all of those webinars where you can just attend and you can ask questions. I have seen people asking the questions that are just one Google search away. So try not to do that kind of thing that showcases that you are not really sincere, and you are just speaking for the sake of it and for the sake of showing your presence. Rather, if you are really interested or you are really curious about maybe a particular class or a particular club, make sure to ask those questions, because the admissions committee or anybody that you're talking to from that school would love to answer those questions. They love their schools, and they would love to answer your question. They would love to share their experiences. So please, if you are showing your presence, show it sincerely. So those are my 2 cents of advice, on which Miguel can obviously please add, but please make sure that you do these things very sincerely.
I think these are great points. I just want to add something, which is an advice that someone gave to me when I was in my process as well, is don't undersell yourself. Because I think that when we are writing our essays and when we are thinking about our life journey and our professional life journey at that, we tend to put ourselves in a very auxiliary role, that we contributed to this, we contributed to that. But for these schools, you really need to write it like you were the person in charge, like you did all of those things, because your competitors are all going to be doing that. So if you are extremely, or if you are too honest with the way that you've done it, you're going to fall behind. I'm not saying to be misleading or to lie. Don't ever do that, because they'll catch you right away. Just properly sell what you've done and put yourself at the center of your main achievements and your main life stories.
All right, thanks a lot. So I think since we're talking about this, there is a question that Nakul has, and a follow-up question, because we were talking about talking to alumni, and I'm thinking that maybe it's good to address it right now. So he's asking, there are several highly rated schools, and it is not always practical to reach out to alumni of those schools. Is there an available research or reference material with pointers about some of the top ranked schools. So I'm not sure, maybe like, I think Nakul is trying to ask, how can we research apart from reaching out to alumni? If that's what I can gather. And if there is a research or reference material for that. Anything, Pratibha, Miguel, do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you'll find all sorts of information online. If you don't want to speak with alumni, you'll find YouTube videos, you'll find on the school's page, you'll find the subreddits dedicated to schools. Information is like, you're not going to be missing information. You're going to be able to find it anyways. But let me just highlight it once again, how important it is to speak with alumni or to current students, just because they'll get you a different feeling. On a one-on-one phone call, it will be you'll get more. You really get a better feeling of the school. And more than that, I think that's something that was extremely valuable when I was doing this, is speaking to these people and understand what are the relevant clubs at the university, what are the best courses that you've done, the best professors that you had in your 1 or 2 years there, and just to be able to put all of their information, and then you can take that information and go on the website and check the syllabus of the course and so on and so forth. But just to be able to take that information and also put it in your application, saying, I spoke with some alumni and I really got interested in this type of courses or this club or this professor. I think it just shows a lot of commitment that you cannot find it with the other online research. So, being very short, yes, you can find all sorts of information that you want, but I don't think they are as valuable as speaking with current students or alumni.
Thanks, Miguel. And there's another follow-up question, which I think you've already answered, but I'll still say that question out loud. For the school alumni reach outs, is it just the alums you reach out to or current students? So as Miguel mentioned, Pratik, it's both. You have to get both, best of both the perspectives. And might I mention something, like as a part of our application process, when we work with applicants, it's mandatory for you to reach out to 2 applicants from each school that you are going to apply to. You cannot imagine the kind of insights that you get from current students and alumni. So you can split it across a current student and an alumni who has a similar experience like yourself, put a LinkedIn filter, try and reach out to them. People always come back to help. This is a very nice community. This community, and that's why you see Miguel and Pratibha there, they want to give back. They want to enlighten you a bit, all that they know best. So just reach out to them, and that's the best way, instead of doing your own hustle and finding research articles here and there. Just talk to a person who knows it best. So yeah, and okay, another question there, and then after that we're going to go back to the slide. When do you reach out to these alums and current students? What are the general topics of conversation, and how long do those chats go on for? I think Miguel has answered. It has to be about clubs, about professors, and Pratibha talked about the courses and the journey that you will take. It's going to be about that. But maybe Pratibha, Miguel, do you have, how long do these chats go on, and when should you reach out? Maybe you can help elaborate on that a little.
Yeah, so it really depends on how long the person that you're talking to has, or sometimes you just really hit it off. And I have had examples when I ended up speaking to the person for the first time and for maybe an hour and a half, and we were just, finding common grounds and talking about them. And those sessions were more than any website search that I could ever find. So that generally grows as an organic conversation, if I may say so. And what the general topics of conversation, as Paridhi said, can be about the journey that they have taken, about the clubs, professors, and in addition to that, if you find some other common ground with the person, for example, if you are an international applicant and the person is from your same country, you can ask how it is for the people of that country, or how it is for the international students to be there and really excel at the recruitments, or really excel at the courses. What what do I need to do right now to make myself stand out? So those are the things that are really personal to the other person as well. He has gone through the exact same thing, and he can give you some of the most valuable insights that you can ever imagine. So I think those should be some of the points with which you should start your conversation, and let it be an organic chat afterwards.
But yes, I have
Absolutely.
a very
Okay. I'm sorry. There's some meeting going on, I think, on the
Actually,
side. And then
I
we will
have
see.
made a very serious
My bad, guys. I did not mute all of you at entry, and now I have to go down the list to figure out. However, Akshay was trying to help me on the side. Thank you very much, Akshay, for that. Okay, he's muted. She's muted. All right, over to the next slide. Who's taking this one up?
Yeah. So the next point is about when to start the application. And here, once again, 3 points that we would like to highlight. First one is apply for first round or for early admission. Like, really try to do it as early as you can, because early admission and first round, it really does matter. Because schools, first of all, they are looking for students that are committed to the program. And so the earlier you apply, the more serious they know you are about their school. And second, because we all know that they have some hidden quotas, and if you have a lot of other peers of yours that apply first round and they fill whatever quota you fill in, then even though you have a very good profile, and if you're applying round 2, there's no longer space for you. And this is painful to hear, but it's something that we can avoid. And the way to avoid is, if these are your dream schools, apply for first round. Just start earlier and really make sure that you're there day one. The second point is when to start. And I think here, as a rule of thumb, I think 3 to 4 months before the deadline is a good proxy, because before you start, you don't know just how many things you're going to have to do, just how many people you're going to have to reach out to, just how many iterations of your essays you're going to end up going through, and you use some stories, you take them out, you use another. It can be a painful process, and you need to make sure that you dedicate enough time for it. Otherwise, you're just going to be crunching on the last week to make sure you have a nice version, which should not be the way. This should be a very methodical process. You should guarantee that you do every step with the proper time. And so 3 to 4 months, I would say, as a rule of thumb, before the deadline. The final point is, make sure you do it with a plan. So as I was saying, there are a lot of things going on. You have to do your GMAT. You have to do all the online applications where you have to upload resumes, you have to upload transcripts, you have to upload everything. You need to do networking, you need to write your essays, you need to reach out to people to write your recommendation letters. These are a lot of milestones, and it's easy to get lost in the process. So just take 1 hour, think for yourself, what are all the elements that you need to do? How long should this take? Make a plan and make sure that you stick to the plan. If for some reason you are 1 or 2 weeks late, try to understand why. Maybe you didn't define it well enough in advance, but define these milestones, set the time for them, and try to respect them. It will be a very good advice to make sure you have your best application in time for round 1.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Miguel. And yes, again, if you're looking at early action, most of the deadlines are in August. So time yourself backwards and see how much days you have actually. So you should already be working on your applications with or without GMAT. That goes without being said. So you should already be working on your essays, your story, recommendation, because you have to reach out to your recommenders, like Miguel said, and talking to all these alumni and current students as we talked. All right, the question.
Right. So should you work with a consultant, and if yes, how to choose the right one for you? So it is a very subjective question depending on how much experience and how much experience do you have with the process and how familiar are you with the process. So there might be candidates who are just looking for an upgrade in their current professional life, and they know exactly what the schools are looking for. They have all those stories and they have just the right guidance, and they feel that they do not need somebody to guide them in the entire journey. And then maybe it just might be the case for you that you do not need to work with a consultant. But more often than not, what I have seen is that candidates, no matter who you are and where you are in your entire MBA journey, you would need somebody as a mentor, as a coach, as a guardian, so to say, to be there and to guide you in the right direction. So it can be a friend, it can be a mentor, it can be somebody at your professional workspace, or it can be a consultant for that matter. So first thing is to introspect and analyze where you are and how much clarity do you have in for the entire application process. And if you feel that you need a proper guidance, you need somebody to keep you grounded and make, because as Miguel was saying, there are times when we tend to undersell ourselves, and there are times when we tend to be overconfident and think that just a good GMAT score or just a good GPA would land me to the best school that there is, and I do not need anyone to help me with the entire process. So just to keep yourself grounded, I would say, and at every time be available to guide you in the right direction. You might need somebody, can be a consultant. And if you have decided that you really do need a consultant, to choose the right fit for you, I would suggest that you utilize the free call that almost every consultant provides. You speak to them, you clearly state what your doubts are, you clearly state what are your expectations, and you would generally understand with that 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or a 45-minute call that what the other person is going to provide you with. And if you feel that the person is going to nudge you in the right direction, I think that is the right consultant for you. And no matter who you choose, just please make sure that the person is bringing out your authentic stories. And that is a very important thing that I would want you to focus on. In order to showcase yourself as the stellar applicant, please do not fall in the trap of showcasing false information or showcasing the stories that are not true to yourself. And if you find somebody who is trying to sell you that something, then please do not fall for it, and please do not work with that consultant, is my 2 piece of advice. Miguel, anything that you'd like to add?
I think you said it beautifully. I just want to complement two things. The first one is Pratibha was saying, during your application process, I think the most important, or one of the key things, is you need to have a very good source of feedback. If you have a peer that can do that for you, if you have a parent, if you have a mentor, or if you have a consultant, it's really important that someone is iterating with you on the different versions, because like if you write them yourself, you cannot have you don't have an outside perspective, and you need an outside perspective and someone that's not just going to say it looks amazing, you should submit. No, it needs to be someone that is willing to work it with you. And I think that's why the consultant in this role adds a lot of value, because we are really here to work with you to bring out the best in your application. Whereas if you do it with a peer, maybe they'll just say it looks good, and I'm not really sure they're going to work with you as much. But the key point being, find someone to give you feedback throughout the process. And then how to choose the right fit. My 2 cents here would be, choose someone that has done the process for your dream school, and ideally that has gotten in, because he or she is going to be able to provide a lot of good feedback on what is the profile of the school. And the second one is, try to also look for someone with either your previous professional background or your aspired professional background, because it's all about how you really frame these questions and these elements of the career perspective. how do you pitch your career stories in your essay, and how do you pitch your aspiration. So if you can get someone within your school or someone within your professional scope, it will be better. But for me, the key point is get someone that provides you feedback and that works with you to make sure you bring the best out of your stories.
Absolutely beautiful, Miguel and Pratibha. I just like to make one more point here. Because you're going to be making a huge investment and you're going to be putting your hundreds of thousands of dollars into an MBA, and that's not an easy thing to do. You have to make an investment into a consultant very, very wisely. These are the people who are your mentor or whoever. This is a person who's actually going to redefine you and help you figure out your version 2.0 that's going to be presented to business school. So whenever you're making a choice for that investment, please put down all the 2 points that Pratibha and Miguel have thought of or talked about. You have to find the perfect fit, because that's really going to make or break your chances of making it through to a top school. All right, moving on. I can talk about our process a little bit. That will give you some insight into how you should be approaching your application, even though Miguel and Pratibha have talked a little bit about how you should be approaching it, but more that goes into writing and thinking about your application. If you would like, we also work with some applicants. I can talk about how can you work with us in the next topic, but let me just first walk you through what a process looks like. This will also help you approaching your application the right way if you're doing it yourself, not with a consultant. So before anything, before even thinking about your essays, your LORs, your resume, anything, you have to understand what's your story. What are you going to sell? What's your narrative to a top business school? What's the foundation of that? For that, there is some really deep introspection needed with the right approach and the right frameworks. And that's something that we call content gathering phase. Now, this phase is split into 3 sets. You can call it introspection phase, reflection phase. Content gathering phase is something that we call, because we're collecting all the content that's available in you. You're brain dumping everything that you are as honestly as possible. So like Pratibha mentioned, you don't have to fake yourself to get into a top business school. You have to be honest. Guys, okay, I'm just going to find who's not on mute, and I'm going to mute. Sorry for the inconvenience. We're just going to come back at it. Okay. I think muted. All right, so content gathering phase is split into 3 sets. Set 1 revolves around very high level questions around core and fundamentals of any business school, no matter what business school you're applying to. So questions like, why do you need an MBA? What is that specific gap in your profile that you should be putting in that kind of money for an MBA? Why not you go ahead and do a startup with that kind of money? Or what should your goal be? What are your goals? What you're thinking? Is it just like regular management consulting that 90% of the people pitch, or could there be any other goal that is going to position you or present you uniquely, which is also linked to your current experience? How do you link dots between your post-MBA goals and your current experience? How do you position yourself as a global business leader, like a problem solver? What is the real world challenge that you're really looking and very passionate about solving? Because that's what M7 schools want to hear. They want you to be real problem solvers as business leaders. If you don't have that kind of narrative, you are not going to cut it through. So we're going to help you with the frameworks, a lot of sample essays, figure out the answers to these questions, and then lay out all these pieces of puzzle in front of you. Later, they're going to frame a big picture for you, but for now, it's just brain dumping. Then we move on to set 2. Now, this was narrative from your perspective, you thinking about yourself. We, as your facilitator, need to understand you from a third-person perspective. There is a reason why we do that. So we spend time with admissions directors of top 10 business schools every year, including Colombia. And one of the most important things that we've noticed across business schools over the years is that they have a knack of identifying self-biases in your application. Like Miguel mentioned just now, that you'd be either underselling or overselling yourself, but there'll be biases for you yourself from your own perspective. You need to see yourself through somebody else's eyes from a third-person perspective. And that's precisely what we do in set 2. We remove self-biases in your application by helping you identify 3 really important people in your life, 1 personal connection, 1 professional connection, and the third one could be either of them. We send them a really candid questionnaire, collect some information on your experiences with them, your strengths, weaknesses, achievements, failures, and you get to see yourself from other people's perspective. Why is this necessary? You're going to be answering a lot of questions around strengths, weaknesses, achievements, and failures. You will realize that you have a lot of examples to support your strengths and achievements. But when it comes to failures and weaknesses, you're sort of trying to defend yourself, and you don't come out as honestly as possible because you think it's a bad thing to talk about it. But maybe others are seeing your weaknesses or your failures in different light from learning perspective. So you need to bring them as purely as possible without any self-biases. That's Sept 2. That removes all the self-biases from the picture of your story. Then we move on to Sept 3. This is a little quirky step, but this is where I believe most of the magic actually happens. And you need to be comfortable with the fact that business schools are not just looking at your professional journey, they are looking at your personalities as a whole. They want to understand what kind of values do you hold true that matches really well with the values that are strong or at the core of any business school that you're applying to. For that, we're going to put you through a personality test. And based on the results of the test, the consultants define what are the traits that become the backbone of your application, and everything else that you've done in your life is going to hang around it as a supporting piece of evidence. This is going to be a very personality-driven application, not just professional-driven, because professional journeys are going to be very similar between 2-3 people who are possibly sitting over there, and there is no way that you can stand out if you just focus on your GMAT score and your professional journey. So that's content gathering. Once all of this has been collected, your consultant comes into picture, goes into a brainstorming call with you, goes through all the documents all the content that you've documented, and comes up with a 1-pager branding document for you. And that has your high-level storyline, your theme, your strategy, and your direction. Your consultant is a candidate or an alumni of a top business school who's helped multiple candidates make it to M7. So you are closely working with a mentor who precisely knows what it takes to crack these business schools with scholarship. Once the branding document is ready, now most of the applicants that we work with, initially they think about some schools based on, of course, their GMAT score and goals. But when you've gone through the content gathering phase and your branding, you realize that you've actually changed your goals. You've restructured your story, and you've also maybe gotten a better GMAT. Now, based on where you are at that point in time, let's say 25 days from now, we help you pick the schools where you have the highest potential of converting. And we advise you to hedge your bets against dream schools, realistic schools, and safe schools. So let's say if you're applying to 9 schools, please make sure that you're applying not only to all the dream schools, you're actually hedging your bets, applying to realistic and safe schools as well, so that we know 100% sure shot you are going to get into a couple of realistic and safe schools. And dream schools are always dream schools, guys. We just make sure that we put the best foot out there for you. So we help you pick the schools, and then one by one, we're going to get started working on your essays, on your recommendation. Your consultant gives you unlimited hours, holds your hand, gives you the right direction, all the iterations. It takes 3 to 4 iterations, and your essays will be stellar because the foundation is strong. Like content gathering and the branding is already done. It's more like the matter of how do you position yourself strongly in your essays. For your letter of recommendation, always remember, it can never be a replication or a duplication of your essays or your resume or any other part of your application. It has to be a complementary piece of evidence that makes your case stronger and locks very well in. So if you're talking about leadership, you have to make sure that your recommender is giving 2 extra cents on leadership for you. So based on whatever personality you decide, make sure that the recommender talks about those extra evidences to make your case stronger in front of the admissions committee. For that, we use something that's called Lor Mapping. So along with the story that you have, we are going to help you identify what are these aspects that your recommender should be using in their examples or in their story or in their pitch for yourself in the letters of recommendation. We've got a session for you on your resume as well. Of course, it's going to be a boring black and white resume, but it has to communicate everything that you want to communicate based on your branding and your overall story. Then if you're going to go for, let's say, early action round, we also help you with the interview preparation soon after content gathering, because everything has to go hand in hand and you're 100% going for an interview. So we also help you with your video interviews, anything that comes after. And if you get in, then we help you do a lot of mock sessions for your final round of interview until you're more prepared than what we expect the interviewer to ask you. And you can drive the conversation in the direction that you define for yourself. So that's the full process. Pratibha and Miguel are there if you're targeting Colombia. I'm sure if you reach out to them, connect with them on LinkedIn, they'll be happy to connect with you. Any questions you have, they'd be happy to answer also later. How can you work with MBA and beyond? So we have a bunch of people here. Some of them have already spoken to us. We have kind of already analyzed their profiles. But we are offering top 3 candidates up to 20% discount who attended us here. We'll take the learnings from what Miguel and Pratibha have given you, whatever we've discussed so far, and please help us answer these 2 questions. What do you think sets you apart from your peers? And second one is, let's talk about one personal achievement. Like I said, we focus a lot on personalities. There's no right or wrong answer. We just want to see how you have imbibed this information, and we want to see if we can be successful together with you. We have all your information, your GMAT score, number of years of experience in schools you're targeting. It's just a matter of fact that we want to understand how you approach these 2 questions, and please send answers to us by end of day tomorrow, whichever time zone you're in, and we're going to come back to you with results by Monday evening. So that's just a little bit of process. We have just 2-3 more questions. Miguel and Pratibha, let me see if we have some time. So let's take them up. Okay. So these were sent to us earlier. So there's somebody asking, how would we look at applying for a STEM MBA program when the candidate's background, education and work experience is not STEM related? Okay, tricky. Pratibha, Miguel, like any one of you wants to take this one up?
I can start with this one.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the MBA class profile it's very diverse, and that's part of the richness of doing an MBA. And I think all of these diverse profiles, non-STEM profiles, are extremely welcome at the school, just because you gain more from a more diverse classroom. So I actually think comparatively it's even kind of sort of an advantage, because you already have your uniqueness point. Whereas if someone comes from a STEM background, they still need to dig deep to find their uniqueness element. You already have your uniqueness element right there, and you should leverage it.
All right, thanks. There's another question. My question relates to a second MBA after a decade of the previous one. Oh, we've worked with plenty of these guys. How welcoming are the M7 schools for such candidates, and is it worth it? Would love to hear if you have peers. So maybe Miguel can answer if you have any peers who were going for second MBA, if you know anyone in Colombia who went to school with you. And would love to hear if you have peers in the same program doing a second master's or a second MBA. Also, how should the prep for such candidates be different? So I can build up on that, but yeah, maybe if you have any insights.
Yeah, so I don't know anyone doing a second MBA, but I know a lot of people doing a second master's, including myself. Just because in the European model, it's normal to you do your undergrad and you do your master's right away. You start work, and then a couple of years down the line you do your MBA. But I guess here the point is always the same. As long as you have in your professional journey, as long as you have a good reason for why you're doing this second MBA now, I think it's never a problem, because if you have a good narrative for it, if there's a reason why this one it's different from the other, or it's complementary, it will always be well received. And as I was saying, there are a lot of students doing the MBA as their second masters. I'm sure there are a lot of people doing it as a second MBA. I happen not to know or not to think of anyone at this point, but this is definitely not an issue. Just once again, think about how you're going to include it in your narrative. How is the second MBA going to be important for your career? why wasn't the first one, why didn't the first one fill that role? So as long as you have all of these elements very clear and they come out in your essay, you'll be great.
Perfect. I'll just build up on that a little. So most of the times when people apply for second MBA, they're coming from India. So they've either gone to like IIMs and immediately gone for an MBA after their bachelor's. And how mostly people try to position themselves later, let's say if they try to go to a B school after a decade, is that it's more like an MIM degree, more like a master's in management. And that's how they try to position, because an international MBA requires you to have an experience. As long as some schools are, of course, anti-second MBA. So you have to first pick the right schools, which are welcoming of the applicants who are going for a second MBA. And secondly, you need to have a very solid reason for why do you need to go for a second MBA. So for your question where you're asking if it's worth it, you have to first answer it for yourself. And if you answer it for yourself, you can definitely write a convincing story around why do you need a second MBA and why is it worth it. So I hope that helps. Before I take up the next question, I actually received a question for Pratibha. Let me just see how much time we have. We have 4 minutes. Okay, this question is specifically for Pratibha. What is the support that MBA and Beyond has provided to you post your securing an admit to CBS? Pratik is asking this. So Pratibha, yeah, maybe go for it.
Sure, Pratik. Thanks for the question. I wasn't honestly expecting this. So MBA and Beyond has been really helpful throughout my journey, and even after I got the admit. And if you have noticed in my introduction, Paridhi was very kind to boast about my other admits, and you know, it wasn't a very straightforward decision for me. So to make that decision, I needed somebody with the experience and with the knowledge of the ground realities and how I am going to, you know, excel at every different school that I had the options to go to. So to make my decision to go to Colombia was something with which MBA and Beyond really helped me. And afterwards, because Colombia works really differently for the scholarships, so in the scholarship journey as well, there are it really helps you sometimes when you share additional information to the school. So afterwards, whenever I needed some or the other help regarding sharing my information which could help me with the scholarship, MBA and Beyond was there to help me out. So yeah, I think those were the two most important aspects which really helped me be where I am. So yeah, that answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Pratibha. Another question actually as a follow-up, because we're talking about early decision. Siddhant is asking, what are your thoughts regarding the early decision at Colombia? And a lot of people have this question, by the way, as if you get through it rules out other universities. So that's what he's asking. I think he's talking about the binding offer and everything. If looking at multiple options, should one then focus at regular decision rounds? So maybe your take on that a little bit.
Right. So early, I'm just starting, Miguel, you can maybe follow along. So early decision or early action rounds are very powerful means of communicating your commitment. So Colombia is one of those schools which really starts very early, and it is a rolling decision as well. So you need to understand the importance of the rolling decision as well. You get your decision maybe in a month or a month and a half after you apply in the early decision. So that really helps you relax if you get through the school, and that really helps you introspect if you don't. So let's say if you get through the school, then the binding option comes in. So before you have the decision and before you have that admit, nobody is binding you from applying to other schools. You can definitely apply to the other schools, be it early round or regular decision. But once you have your admission decision from the school, Columbia allows you only a couple of weeks before you make your decision and pay your first deposit. So that sort of binds you to the school. But generally speaking, it's not a legal thing that you cannot go out and apply to the other schools, but it's definitely against the honor code that you sign at the time of applying to the school, that you'll be 100% committed to the school if you get through. I hope that answers your question, and we can talk about it in details offline as well.
Thanks a lot. Guys, we actually hit the clock. So I think we'll have to take up your questions later, or maybe next session you can reach out to us also in email, on an email, or you can schedule a call with us and we'd be happy to answer. Maybe we take one last question I see from Akshay, and I'll quickly answer this. What about overcoming personal struggles? That's where most of the real life learning is. Does that at all count for the B school applications? To be honest, yes. And that's why you see that second question that we are looking for you to answer. Let's talk about one personal achievement. So if you feel like there was some personal struggle and you have had an achievement there and you really overcome it, business schools really give you a good hearing. So make sure you're not just sticking to your professional journey. And if you're interested in working with us, there's an email. It's going to come from me to you now. I'm going to be sending out these questions to you. Please reply to that email by tomorrow, end of day, and we're going to decide on the winners by Monday. Thank you, Pratibha. Thanks, Miguel. Thanks, everyone, for a wonderful session. Your lovely audience, and thanks for these amazing questions. That's what makes these conversations more insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.